the Exhaust Noise Podcast and Cycle Vision Network. I'm here with the one and only Pat Gonsalves, the voice of Daytona Bike Week for many, many years. We've had a fantastic day. We were able to get around. There was a lot of practice qualifying. We focused on the Canadians. We nicknamed the Canadian Garage Canada Corner, and so you can see a lot of the live interviews we did with all the Canadians that are down from the CSBK. Let's talk a little bit about Rev TV Canada and the CSBK series. It's a great series, 6 rounds this year. How's all that shaping up, Pat?
Yeah, and if you're just waiting to get all the Daytona news from today, we've got it for you. Just real quickly, Kenny, as you know, I retired from my longtime sales job at Q107 and Chorus about 2.5 years ago. And as my good friend Dave Despain said, you got to take retirement very, very seriously. I didn't, because when the opportunity came up to sell advertising for Rev TV, which is Canada's motorsport channel with motorcycle, car racing. We carry MotoGP, World Superbike, and of course, this is the opening round coming up this weekend of MotoGP. A couple of weeks ago, we had the 2 weeks ago now, we had the opening round of World Superbike, and we carry all of those live, commercial-free from start to finish. We also carry the Isle of Man, which is absolutely great coverage, and the brand new Women's Circuit Racing World Championship. We'll be carrying that starting in June on Rev TV, and always looking for more and better content on the channel and all forms of motorcycle racing. Yeah. But we also have a strong complement of auto racing and various automotive shows. We carry a great Formula One magazine called Inside Line, and that's on Tuesday evenings at 8 o'clock. So for Canadian fans who are out there catching our podcast and various content that Kenny and his great team here with Cycle Vision Network have posted off over the last couple of days, if you don't have Rev TV, check with your local provider. I think my provider, which is Bell in Canada, I pay $4 a month to add it on. In some cases, it can be part of your overall package. Yeah. But we're having a great time, and great group of people working there at the channel, just looking to make it bigger and better. And it's been a great opportunity for me to come down here and do all this great podcast stuff. And we had an absolute blast hanging out in Canada corner of the garage with all of the Canadian riders who are here.
I'm not sure they were expecting that, to be honest. I know that they recognized yourself. They didn't know who the other guy was wandering around. So, but the Canadian Superbike Championship, it'll kick off in Shannonville, right?
Yep. Many of the riders who are here will be racing starting in May. That's on our Victoria Day weekend, which is a week before your Memorial Day weekend. And then it's on to Grand Bend, June 7, 8, 9. Unfortunately, that conflicts with the Loudon Classic. And so right now I do the PA at CTMP, the old Mosport. So I've got to make a decision. Do I have a shorter drive to catch the CSBK round, or do I make a longer drive and go check out the Loudon Classic? And then the series is going to return to Edmonton in June. That is June 21st to 23rd. Haven't been out west in quite a while, so it's great to see the series back in Edmonton. Then it's out to Atlantic Motorsport Park. What a great little racetrack. And that is July 12, 13, 14. Great hospitality out there. It's sort of, an old school racetrack, lots of elevation changes, and a real test. And then we're back to the biggest round of the year. Always a great crowd. That is August 9, 10, 11. That race, traditionally, Kenny, was about a week later, but when Moto America announced that they were going back to Mid-Ohio, and Mid-Ohio is a short drive for Canadian fans in Southern Ontario, they moved the CSBK race weekend up. So if you're looking to go back-to-back, you can catch the CSBK Canadian Superbike Championships at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park August 9, 10, 11.
And that's basically Bowmanville. It's listed as Bowmanville, Ontario.
It's about an hour northeast of Toronto, an easy drive. Yep. And then we go back to Shannonville Motorsport Park on Labor Day weekend for the finale. And Ben Young, who is down here, the highest qualifying Canadian rider. For a while, I thought he may have had an outside shot at getting into the time attack where you had to be in the top 12. His problem, he never could find a drafting partner out there. Yeah. But Ben is looking real good, and those Bridgestone shod Suzuki GSXR 750s, I think they could end up with an absolute solid finish out here tomorrow.
And there was a Triumph in there, and a couple Kawasaki's. One of the comments that, or a couple of the comments that some of the Canadian riders mentioned was that they're used to drafting, but the track that they draft at most of the time is Mosport in Toronto. It does have a long back straightaway, but that's nothing like here at Daytona. And it seems like everyone was really just sort of getting used to the track here. And I think that if these guys return next year, they'll have a much better shot at it, just understanding it better. A lot of times when you get down here as a new rider, a new team, you're chasing gearing. Front sprocket, rear sprocket, you're trying to find that right combination of torque and power and top speed, and then getting used to the banking. The banking is a little bit like a straightaway, but there's still a lot of technique involved. And you get the drafting and the walls and then having to go from top speed to second gear to get through the chicane and back into turn one, everything else. It's a little tricky putting it all together.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, Kenny, before we wrap up the CSPK schedule is that Canadian Tire Motorsport Park round, August 9, 10, 11. For the very first time, we're going to have a bagger race, and we'll get to the bagger results from earlier this afternoon here at Daytona. But that will be the Bagger Racing League coming north of the border. Rob Badu and his organization partnering with Ross Milson with CSBK. So for the very first time, we're going to see the Bagger machines run at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park.
It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, and it'll bring out a whole other new group of race fans. We're looking forward to that.
I think you're going to get a lot of folks from that region that would normally go to the Loudon Classic also crossing over Niagara Falls there to get into Toronto to participate in that. A lot of Canadians here this weekend. As we mentioned, there was a whole garage, I think 11 riders total that were there, most all of them on Bridgestone tires.
Yeah, everybody on Bridgestones, and we did have the one scratch of the entry for Elliot Vieira on the Ducati. And just to update those fans who I'm sure have seen stuff on social media about Alex Coelho, the San Bazile Legrand rider who crashed right at the start of his qualifying session yesterday. He was transported to the Halifax hospital. Apparently in the high side crash, he landed on his shoulder. I think there was a broken collarbone that needed to be repaired. And then unfortunately, one of the last riders who was behind him on the racetrack, just coming out to start qualifying, clipped the lower part of his leg and his ankles. I think there's some broken bones there. We were hoping to get an update from Paul Schwemmer, who has helped him out here for many, many years. We may have that before we go off. But Alex is on the mend, and I think we're going to go out tonight and find the biggest get well card, and we're going to get a bunch of the racers to sign that and present that to one of the real good guys who's been around the sport for a long time, former top amateur sport bike rider, and he's been certainly up there top 10 for a number of years.
And had a shot at being in the hunt for the win of the Daytona 200. He was very, very fast here in the fall when they were testing, and just as good a shot as anyone else. As we get into the next phase here of exhaust noise, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Of course, you can follow all the Moto America action on Moto America Live Plus. It's a $110 subscription for the season. They may still be running an early bird special, which would make it about $89, but I know starting this week, I think it was switching over to $110. It was $109.99, I think. So watch Moto America Live Plus, and then make sure you subscribe to Rev TV Canada so you can catch the Canadian Superbike Championship. And Pat, let's dive in. There's a lot happening right now in Victory Lane, which is now Mobile One Victory Lane. they're actually doing the pit stop challenge where they're taking the top 5 teams. We're going to try to have those results for you before we wrap up this Exhaust Noise podcast. But we were trying to figure out, because we never found a list of which teams they were going to have. It was either the top 5 qualifying teams or the top 5 in the time attack, and we still didn't get those answers from Moto America. But Tyler Scott, Stefano Mesa, Bobby Fong, Hayden Gillum, and Joshua Herron, top 5 in the time attack. The time attack this afternoon, they took the top 12 qualifiers, and they had a race this afternoon, and that
time's 15 minutes sort of qualifying shootout,
like a super pole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So they had basically a super pole, and Tyler Scott was the fastest of that session at 1:48.047. That being said, however, it was not faster than the time that Richie Escalante threw down in the qualifying session, which was 1:47.833. So 1:47.8 for Escalante versus 1:48.047 in the time attack. So we're still waiting for the combined results, but Richie Escalante on the Suzuki should still be on pole position from what we gather.
Well, and again, we've been back and forth in some of the details in terms of even the cutoff. Originally, we were told it was 110% and then 108. No, it's 110. And that is in the supplemental rules. So a rider must qualify through any of the various qualifying sessions within 110% of the pole time. Now, is that pole time the 1:48.047 or is it Escalante's? We'll have that answer for you by tomorrow. But the other thing is, if a rider in any session had gone under 2 minutes, they can earn a provisional start in the Daytona 200. So, Kenny, I think when it's all said and done, that there are going to be about 60 riders starting here tomorrow afternoon in the 82nd running of the Daytona 200.
Yep.
And this is as close a field when you talk about parity. When we look at the time attack, the top 10 riders were separated by less than a second. It was that close among those riders. And when you look at the mix of brands, and Moto America, I think, has done a tremendous job of equalizing the performance on all of the various motorcycles that have been homologated for competition in Moto America Supersport. That is the class we're running here for the Daytona 200.
Yep.
There are 5 Suzukis of those top 12 from the time attack, 2 Ducatis, 2 Triumphs, and 3 Yamahas. No Kawasaki's in there.
Which is very interesting.
But there are some very good riders just in back of those top 12. And I think at the end of the race tomorrow, we could see a Kawasaki or 2 up there inside of the top 10, including riders such as Jason Farrell that you're familiar with because he runs that ASRA regional with you up there in the Midwest.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Just making the top 12, it was Peter Hickman, of course, winning the Isle of Man TT several times. Hickman, he's going to be on the number 765 motorcycle. That's a Triumph. His fastest time in the time attack was 1:51.685. He's on the PHR Performance Triumph, and he was really the only one besides Brandon Posh, surprisingly, outside of that top 10. As you mentioned, less than a second separating Tyler Scott, who, again, brought a time of 1:48.047, back to Joshua Hayes, who was 10th fastest, 1:49.068. Again, just less than a second separating those top 10. What an amazing field.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout-out to Josh Hayes. He's been doing this thing for a long, long time and missed the first round of qualifying yesterday. So that is 30 minutes of track time where you're working on the setup, you're working on tire wear and other bits of information that you hope to take into the race. But he completely missed the qualifying yesterday because they had problems with the bike in practice. But he came out in that qualifying session that was held this morning and was able to put that Yamaha into the time attack. and he's within a second of the fastest lap that we saw here today. So,
yeah, and hats off to his wife Melissa Paris, who's doing an amazing job of putting that team together, and she of course is his crew chief for all of that, and she's done an amazing job. One of the top mechanics in the paddock. We've been doing a lot of talking today, so the voices are starting to get a little bit stressed, so we apologize for that. But Pat, what are some of the other things that stood out for you outside the top 12? Well, why don't we run down the top 12 real quick? So in the time attack, again, we had Tyler Scott on the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. Stefano Mesa was second fastest on the number 37 Boulder Motorsports Ducati. Bobby Fong was third fastest on the Wrench Motorcycles Suzuki. Hayden Gillum, number 95 on the Vezra Racing Suzuki. Josh Herron was fifth fastest on the number 2 Ducati. That's the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati. The number 1 Xavi Flores, the defending number 1 plate from the Super Sport class last year on the Attack Performance Progressive Yamaha Racing machine. Blake Davis, the Chuck Giacchetto tuned machine, up to 7th. So another good day for Blake Davis, just progressing up the list from one session to another. Davis on that N2 Racing bobblehead moto machine went a minute 49.021, the first rider on the lowest of the 49s. 147 of Richard Cooper, that's Hickman's teammate. Cooper again on the Triumph, a minute 49.034 on that PHR Performance Triumph. Richie Escalante, who turned a time yesterday, a minute 47.833. Escalante was 9th fastest in the time attack on that number 54 Suzuki, again, the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. Joshua Hayes was 10th on the CSU One Cure J-Force racing machine. Again, that machine sponsored by the Cancer Research Department at Colorado State University. 11th fastest was the previous winner, number 96 of Brandon Posh on another Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. And then 12th fastest was Peter Hickman, again on the PHR Performance Triumph, the number 765. Again, his time, a minute 51.685.
Kenny, let me talk about just a couple of the riders in there. Stefano Mesa, I think, has been just quietly getting faster, more dialed in. When you look to the first practice session, he was quicker in qualifier 1, quicker yet in qualifier 2, and then in the time attack was the second fastest rider. In fact, for quite a bit of that 15-minute session, he was at the top of the order until very late when Tyler Scott was able to bounce back and grab the fastest time and win the time attack. And remember, yesterday, after turning the second fastest time in the first qualifying session behind his M4 Vision Wheel X-Star Suzuki teammate, Richie Escalante, he put it on the ground over at the chicane. Yeah. So I think he was still nursing some bumps and bruises, but came back to grab that time attack run right at the end of the session. But Stefano Mesa is going to be there tomorrow. That is a very experienced Boulder Motorsports team led by Brian Sharp. I spent a little bit of time over there with Al Charles, who is one of the crew members. Al's sort of a extra pair of hands running stuff from the garage to pit road. He certainly has been around Daytona for decades, but Mesa, I think, could be one of the guys when you look at and start, making predictions. Yeah. I think he's got as good a shot as any of those riders.
And he's had a lot of track time because he's also in the Roland Sands Super Hooligans race, and so he's getting a lot of track time. He's already put in a race today, so he's starting to, Randy Renfro used to use the term lapse of anger. He's turned some laps of anger now. They're starting to get some of that out. We heard that from Troy Herfoss this morning as well. He's like, practice and qualifying, all that went well, but now getting a race under my belt, now I feel like I'm at Daytona. I feel like I'm racing. Let's go.
The other rider I want to mention, Brandon Posh. He's sort of been slowly lurking in the shadows, if you will. There's a guy who is on, he's already won the Daytona 200 on a Yamaha. He's won it on a Triumph, And if he can win the race here tomorrow, that'll be a third different brand. And not sure, we'd have to go back in the record books. I don't think anybody has done that. A number of riders have done it on two motorcycles.
Yeah.
Very few of the riders who have won multiple Daytona 200s have done it on three different motorcycles.
Yeah.
And the other guy who I think it was a bit of a head scratcher after turning that minute 47 time, which is a brand new track record here for Daytona, Escalante sort of went backwards today. They couldn't match the time, while just about every one of the other riders was running either faster in the qualifying session, or if they made it into the time attack, their time attack time was quicker than they ran in either of the qualifying sessions. So they may have made some changes to the bike, went in the wrong direction, but don't count out Richie Escalante. Remember, last year, him and Herron came together in turn one and put him on the ground that took him out of the race when I think he had the pace and a motorcycle and a crew that could have given him his first Daytona 200 win.
Yeah, for sure. It was a little bit windier today, and so it's hard to tell if that played any role in headwind. But it'll be interesting to see how things shake out tomorrow morning as well. They will have a warm-up session tomorrow. Not that we're expecting anybody to go any faster, but it'll. If it's a nice calm day tomorrow without the headwind, I think we're going to see an incredible race.
Yeah.
Who are some of the other riders outside of that top 12 that stood out to you, Pat?
Well, looking at that second qualifying session, just missing getting in to the time attack was Danny Eslick. Eslick right there, a minute 49.8. That ride was put together very, very late by TOBC. Michelle Lindsay and the crew, you know, they've won it here 4 times before. Eslick looking for his 5th win in the 200 to match Scott Russell and Miguel Duhamel. I think Eslick's going to be right there as well. And then we've got the Yart group. They certainly yesterday struggled. All of those bikes were apart in the garage area. Today, I think things went a little bit better as Nicola Canepa got up there to run 15th fastest in that second qualifying session. Right behind him was Carl Haneke. And then Marvin Fritz was one of the riders who struggled a little bit yesterday, but Fritz was right there in 13th position. So they're all running about the same pace. And I think those 3 riders talk about working the draft. Look for all 3 of those Yart riders.
And they did it all day.
To try to help each other in the draft tomorrow. And all of those riders certainly capable of running in the top 10. Right now, the lap times that they're turning says, well, they may be just in that second group, but you never know. These are 3 very skilled European riders who have come in here. And I think where they can be helped is those 2 pit stops. They'll have a crackerjack of a crew changing the tires and refueling those motorcycles.
They are well-oiled endurance machines, and Fritz, Canepa, and Haneke they went out. They left the paddock together. They worked together for the entire qualifying session. They came in at the same time. They made their pit stops. They actually had notes to share with each other, and they went back out again. We actually filmed all of that live this morning, and so they knew the importance of working together here, and it worked out for them because it put all 3 of them inside the top 20 for qualifying. And right behind Canepa and Haneke were Kayla Yakov and Corey Alexander on the 2 Rahal Ducatis. They improved their times substantially this morning. They improved. Kayla was about 3 seconds, and as you mentioned earlier, Corey Alexander was about 4 seconds better than his time yesterday, and almost leaving P.J. Jacobson behind. Kayla Yakov and Corey Alexander were 17th and 18th. P.J. Jacobson, he only improved his time today by about 7/10, leaves him back in 26th.
Yeah, it's been interesting to look at the dynamics among those 3 riders. Kayla and PJ, of course, on the XPEL, with the yellow and black livery on those bikes. Although Corey Alexander is part of that team, He is on a different sponsorship package.
The roll or die.
Yeah, and I know at the test they had about a 3-day test at Jennings prior to Daytona. PJ was fastest, then Kayla was second fastest among the trio, and Corey Alexander was third quickest, but they were only separated by less than a second, so not a whole lot to take out of that test. But here yesterday, PJ was quickest, and both Kayla Yakov and Corey Alexander struggled yesterday. Whatever changes they made to the bike, it went a whole lot better today, and both of those riders putting up lap times into the low minute 50s. So if they can find a little bit more pace tomorrow, and Kenny, you know that we have seen, a lead pack of 12, 14 riders. I think in the early going at least, that lead pack could be as many as 20 riders.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think it'll sort of split apart into multi-rider groups.
Yeah, but I think once they start hitting the pit stops, we're going to start to see them separate a little bit.
Yeah, and that's where it will split up. And so again,
19, 20 laps in, we'll start to see how it shakes out and whether or not they some of these riders can make up time or if they're going to continue to be set back.
Yeah, and the other thing I noticed in a number of the sessions in practice and qualifying, at the bottom of the qualifying or practice results, there's a note about riders exceeding the speed limit on pit lane that is 60 kilometers per hour or about 37 miles per hour. And those motorcycles, when they're going 180 plus, when they come on a pit road, it looks like they're standing still. But again, that'll be something to watch here tomorrow afternoon. You cannot afford to take a penalty.
Yeah.
That is a 5-second penalty that's going to be added to your time. And with just how close this field is compacted, 5 seconds is going to cost you about a half a dozen positions in the final results.
Yeah, you can't afford it. And behind Kayla and Corey, you've got one of the top Canadian riders, the number 86 of Ben Young. He's also on the Team Battle Axe Suzuki. His fastest time of 150.329.
Fastest I think he's ever gone here. And we did that nice little piece with him and his teammate Trevor Daly in their pit area there, where they didn't need me with the microphone. We just mic'd up both of those riders, and they had a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And I was glad to see in that, Kenny, that they mentioned Warren Dunham, who was the guy who had the vision and was pushing with Bridgestone to get him back here to Daytona in a big way. They had a pretty good effort last year. The bikes weren't up to scratch, but before he retired from Bridgestone, Warren Dunham was the guy who put that program together with Trevor Daly and Suzuki Canada to have both Ben Young and Trevor Daly on these GSXR 750s. Trevor did a lot of the build, and but again, the vision for that came from Warren Dunham. I don't think he's here in Daytona, but I'm sure he'll be watching, because his dream was to have a Bridgestone shod machine win the Daytona 200. And when you look at the caliber of riders that they've brought here,
it's possible.
The 3 Yart riders are on the Bridgestone. So
10 Canadians.
Yeah, and all of the Canadian riders, we'll briefly touch on them because we spent a good hour talking to all of those riders over there in Canada corner of the garage area.
Yeah, right behind Ben Young, the Canadian, you've got Matt Truelove. The Truelove brothers, they were down here last fall. They had mixed results. One fell and got hurt. The other did okay. Teague Hobbs was right there as well. Again, another young rider moving his way up through. David Anthony, who's been in the Superbike paddock for quite a while, he should be competitive as well. He's on another Suzuki. Carl Soltis on a Suzuki finished 24th fastest. Taylor Knapp is here as well, another one of the previous top riders in Moto America competition. Taylor qualifying just ahead of PJ Jacobson by about 0.2 of a second. So Taylor Knapp could be competitive as well. I mean, a lot of this is we talk about the draft all the time, but you get a good start, you stay in the draft, you run a nice competitive race for a while, and then at the end, let's see who's left for that let's say last 10, 20 lap dash for cash.
We talked about Richie Escalante not improving today on his lap time, And there were a few riders who had that situation, including Super Carl Soltes, who today was not able to improve on his qualifying time from yesterday, where he was about 3 or 4 tenths slower. So again, they may have made some changes and adjustments to the bike overnight. Just couldn't get it to go any faster here today. But Super Carl is going to be looking to put in a good solid run on his Suzuki GSX-R 750. And of course, for the riders in the Moto America Super Sport class, the Daytona 200 is a one-off. It doesn't count towards their overall championship. They'll be picking that up next month when they kick it off at Road America,
which is also
Road Atlanta.
Which is also one of the reasons it doesn't have a spec tire. So you see a lot of riders, trying some different tires. Dunlop, was very dominant in the Daytona 200 in the past. Pirelli's had a very competitive tire. Looks like Bridgestone has a very competitive tire. We really didn't see a lot of Michelin, just to be fair, to mention Michelin. We really didn't see any competitive Michelin riders this weekend that were there. But I can't. I would have a hard time believing that Michelin won't start to develop a better tire here, just because it's gotten so competitive, and they certainly have the resources to do that. Harry Truelove, who's Matt's brother, was down in 27th, just ahead of Gus Rodeo. We just heard Gus Rodeo in the media center because he finished, he won the Twins Cup. Spoiler alert. But Gus Rodeo was on the Ducati, and that was sort of a one-off thing. His dad had the bikes and said, hey, if you want to do it, let's do it. But if you want to focus on the Twins Cup race, you can. So there's a couple of races that he'll do. I think he wants to go through the experience of the Daytona 200, but they just weren't very fast. He ended up 28th fastest this afternoon. You mentioned Trevor Daly, who was 30th, Jason Farrell, Danilo Lewis, and Max Angles, all inside the top 35. Jason Waters, another top rider on the Edge Racing Kawasaki there. And then Group 2, there was only about 10 riders or so out of Group 2 that may have made it. Again, looking at the percentage to make the field, it may have been enough to get maybe the top 20, 25 riders in there.
Yeah, well, I think Moto America is probably going to hope to have, somewhere in the vicinity of about 20 rows for the Daytona 200. Based on the 110%, Kenny, I think you had to turn sort of a minute 58 to make it in on your time. That would put it within 110%. Then after that, if you had an issue, then there is the option to get a provisional start as long as you've shown a pace of at least a minute 59.99. And then the other option as well there is that if in the practice even you had gone within 110% of the pole time, then you could also get in. One of those riders, because he missed both of the qualifying sessions, but his injuries will not allow him to start, was Alex Coelho, who had turned a minute 56 early on Thursday morning in practice. And then, of course, things went awry for him. But again, we'll try to get an update tomorrow on our show as to how Alex is doing and when he'll be released from the hospital today.
But that being said, Sebastian Tremblay should be able to get in. Maverick Sear.
All those guys are in. And
Storniolo.
When you look at that list, and we did chat with each one of those riders, they're all first-time starters in the Daytona 200. And sort of the common thread through all of the interviews and the conversation was getting used to the racetrack, trying to figure out the infield where they were still struggling with some of the corners, and then, of course, the pit stops. Not all of these teams have all of the real good quick change stuff or a group that can get them in and out of the pits in 12 seconds. Some of these teams, it's going to be 20 to 24 seconds.
And they were very transparent about that. Again, in talking to the teams, it's going to take 10 seconds to get the full tank of fuel, and then a couple seconds just to get all of the stands off. So a fast time is going to be somewhere around 12 seconds for these guys. And of course, we'll know a little bit more when they finish the pit stop challenge here in a few minutes. But most teams are planning on having pit stops somewhere between 12 and 15 seconds. some are saying, yeah, it's going to probably take us 20 seconds. So they already know that they're going to lose 8 seconds per pit stop, and whether it's a 2-stop strategy or a 3-stop strategy, that might be enough to really take you out of contention. One of the riders that did make the field or should make the field if everything holds together is the 84 Yamaha of Anthony Fania Jr. Of course, he's chasing some of the mileage records and lap records here at Daytona International Speedway when it comes to number of laps and miles here at Daytona. A lot of which there were other contenders before him who you had called races for. So Anthony Fania always here, not very fast, but just going after his own piece of Daytona history.
Well, he had a pretty good time. He improved substantially today, a minute 56.939. So that is well under the 110%. Yep. So Anthony Fania Jr. will start in the Daytona 200. And of course, the guy he's chasing, the late John Ashmead, who had raced here for over 20 years, has the record for number of miles and number of laps. Don MD has been keeping track of that over the years. So I'm not sure if Anthony Fania Jr. is going to be able to catch John Ashmead for that record.
And then it was Rick Shaw.
Rick Shaw originally was, and then John Ashmead overtook him, the late Rick Shaw. And now he's still out in front, and Anthony Fania trying to chase him down. One other rider in that Group A I want to mention, Trevor Dion, fine young rider from Ontario who won the Canadian Sport Bike Championship a couple of years ago. He's teammate to Josh Herron. He crashed yesterday, came back today, ran faster than he qualified yesterday, although he was a little bit further back. A minute 51 and change. So if he can finish, I think he's got a shot at a top 20 finish. And then, as we said, among the Canadian riders, Sebastien Tremblay, Sam Guerin, and Maverick Cyr, all Quebec riders who were 4th, 5th, 6th, they all ran faster today, picking up a second or so from where they ran yesterday. Matt Simpson, another first-time rider. Brad McRae, the helicopter pilot. When we were over there, Kenny, they were having all kinds of braking problems on the bike. Yeah. They had the whole front end apart, and they were looking to get that. So that warm-up session tomorrow, he's going to hope to go out there and test those brakes and hope that they are working properly, because that really struggled. Although he had the brake problem, he did improve on his time. And then the last rider, another rookie in the Daytona 200, Alex Michel on one of the Speed Factory Kawasaki.
This is not a place you want to lose your brakes.
So tomorrow we'll recap everything to do with the Daytona 200. I think we've got hot off the press the results of the pit stop challenge.
Thanks, sir.
And Kenny, why don't you take it away? $15,000, I believe, was the total prize fund for winning the pit stop challenge, and it looks like Richie Escalante was one of the riders in there.
It looks like Josh Herron was DQ'd. It looks like Bobby Fong was DQ'd. So that could have been anything from leaving a tool on the axle or anything else. So it comes down to the top 3. Third was David Anthony. Yeah, Wrenchmoto. Yeah. David Anthony. Bobby Fong was on a Wrenchmoto.
Yeah. Okay. So Bobby Fong in third.
Yep.
Second then was
Xavi Forres
on the Yamaha.
Yep, on the Attack Yamaha.
Yeah. And lo and behold, Stefano Mesa on the Boulder Motorsport Ducati. And when I was over there earlier this afternoon, Kenny, Al Charles says to me, and he's been around the racetrack for decades, he said to me, I've been watching these guys, and this is one amazing crew behind Stefano Mesa. And sure enough, if they have won the pit stop challenge, I'm sure that'll give even more confidence. Not that he isn't confident going into the race tomorrow, but Stefano Mesa knows that these guys are going to get him in and out of the pits. as quickly as possible, and he just needs to get it done on the racetrack. So they pick up a check of $7,500 for winning the pit stop challenge here in Victory Lane at Daytona. Congratulations to the crew there, led by Brian Sharp and the riders that he has brought over, and some of the great crew guys on that team.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks for that, Chris. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
One of the races that just finished this afternoon, the Twins Cup. Some of those riders doing double duty in Twins Cup and in the Daytona 200 this weekend. Super Hooligans had a race this afternoon as well, and King of the Baggers. Where do you want to start there?
Let's start as they ran it this afternoon. The 6-lap Super Hooligans race won by Troy Herfoss, a 3-time Australian Superbike champion. And Kenny, you and I have seen it over the years. There are not too many riders who can come here to Daytona the very first time and run as fast as Troy Herfoss has run here over the last couple of days. Not only in the Super Hooligans class, but also in the King of the Baggers, where he's the only rider to put up a minute 49.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. He spent the last couple of years on a Ducati Superbike in Australia. This isn't anywhere close to that. This is a completely different motorcycle at Daytona International Speedway. And he was fastest in the first practice. He was fastest in the qualifying sessions, and he ran away with it this afternoon in the Super Hooligans race. So good job for him on the number 17 Indian. I actually did a little clip of those guys on pit road right before the race. So there's if you're a big Indian racing fan, look for that live clip from this afternoon. But so the number 17 was on top of the podium. That's one of the S&S Indian motorcycles. His teammate with the number 1, Tyler O'Hara, also on the S&S Indian motorcycle. And then Corey West, the number 13 on the Saddleman Harley Davidson. His crew was so happy about that. He was high-fiving everybody. His wife, Patricia Fernandez, was in tears. And I think that they knew they could be competitive. They've put a lot of time and energy into it, and they just, whether one thing or another, they just weren't getting on the podium. And so it's really good to see him back there. And one of the comments he made to one of his crew members at the end was, "We're back, baby."
Yeah, and they had their share of issues with the Harley Davidson, but he was able to get up there and grab that final podium position. Yep. Cody Wyman with a good run. He was right there, but this guy doesn't get enough credit. He's been around for a long time.
So
Hawk Mazzata rounds out the top 5 here on his Indian.
Yeah.
He was a little bit further back. Tyler Duffy, 24 in 6th. Hunter Dunham on the Ducati 7th. Jordan Eubanks on the number 249 KTM in 8th. 9th went to Dylan Wall, 519 on the Harley, and Rich Foster on the 101 machine rounded out your top 10. But that race was red flagged after a couple of laps when we had a 3-rider crash in turn 6 coming out of the infield involving Dominic Doyle, who had come back after a shoulder injury and still finished second in the Twins Cup race that we'll cover in a moment. Danny Dominguez was also involved on his Suzuki, and Andy Debrino got the worst of that crash and was transported in the ambulance. We hope to get an update on his situation.
Yeah, Wyman didn't finish. Stefano Mesa on the
batteries with the long delay with the red flag. He just ran out of power on the Energica. And Hayden Schultz, 49, was another DNF along with Nate Kern and Niccolo Canepa. Canepa crashing at the chicane. I think he's okay and should be able to start in the Daytona 200 tomorrow.
Yeah, so that ended up being a 4-lap race. You mentioned Hawk Mazzata. He was one of the top contenders in the BRL, the Bagger Racing League. It's one of Jason Pridmore's guys. So you see a lot of these guys that come through Jason Pridmore's academy and coaching that end up at the top of these things. One of the most famous was Nicky Hayden and Ben Spies, and he even helped coach guys like Matt Mladen at the highest level. So it's not a surprise to see Hawk Mazzata moving up through here. Corey Alexander, also one of the guys under his umbrella. But these guys race all winter long out in Arizona and Southern California and New Mexico, and it keeps them nice and tuned up. But Hak Mazada, he's been putting in a lot of time, a lot of laps. He has a great nutrition program right now, and so it's not a surprise to see him towards the top of this. And I'm expecting him to continue pushing forward. So we should see him doing really well this year.
Race number 2 this afternoon was the Bellissimoto Twins Cup event. Gus Rodeo as dominating a performance as you will ever see here at Daytona.
11 seconds.
Yeah, this was not a 4-rider battle from the chicane to the checkered flag. No. It was an absolute runaway. He led every lap almost 12 seconds ahead of Dominic Doyle, who after crashing in the Super Hooligans race was able to get on his Yamaha and was 4th. The battle for second was outstanding. He was 4th going into the chicane behind Avery Dreyer and Alessandro Di Mario, and was able to go from 4th into second, a double slingshot move to get around and grab second. Avery Dreyer finished in 3rd, and Alessandro Di Mario up for 4th on the Aprilia. Yeah. So we had a couple of Aprilias and a Yamaha on the victory podium. Di Mario also on an Aprilia, but Rocco Landers put in a good solid ride on that new Suzuki GSX 8R, and his teammate Rossi Moore finishes 7th overall, just behind Ben Glady, who was on an Aprilia. So those Suzuki's first race for the brand new bike that's been homologated for the class. Look for those riders to certainly win their share of races and podium finishes this
They
year.
barely have parts for those. So I'm expecting a lot out of GSX-8. Most all the Suzukis have performed really, really well. And with the fact that Rossi Moore and Rocco Landers were both inside the top 10, the first event for that debut of that motorcycle, it's been a good weekend so far for that Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki team, and I think Rocco Landers wanted to do a little bit better, but again, you lose a little bit of that draft, and it just doesn't, and it's hard to make it up. So he was by himself there as he got across the line. I think Ben Galati was right there with him, and they were only 2 and they just couldn't get back up there to the lead draft. Ray Hoffman was back there as well. He's put a lot of laps around this place on that Aprilia. Sonia Lloyd,
good ride for Sonia.
She improved.
After that crash on Thursday, came back, picked up her lap times, and had a good solid run to finish in 12th. Yeah. So she'll pick up some points towards that Twins Cup championship.
Yep. Great ride for her. Caleb DeCarroll, we should mention, I believe he was involved in a crash as well, but the 1833 CJ knows official finish was 19th back there. Caleb DeCarroll, normally one of the front runners.
Up there in the top 5, top 10.
So he'll be chasing points now from, he'll need to qualify well.
Well, they get a second shot at it tomorrow. If you had a bad race 1, come back there and put it on the podium in race 2.
Make it happen.
And going to Road Atlanta in April, you're still in the hunt for the championship.
Yep.
And our third final race this afternoon was a wild and woolly Mission King of the Baggers. And boy, for race fans up in Canada, if nothing else, if you've not been to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park before, you got to come out and watch that Bagger Racing League event. This, of course, a different series, the Mission King of the Baggers with Moto America. But Bagger Racing continues to attract more and more riders and more race fans. So when it was all over, our closest finish of the day, it certainly was in Twins Cup. But Kyle Wyman on the factory Harley-Davidson by 0.018 of a second over Troy Herfoss. And they were playing, you lead, no, you lead, no, let me lead. And it was a scramble from the chicane on that last lap. Very close among Kyle Wyman, Troy Herfoss, and James Rispoli on the other factory Harley, who finished in 3rd. But Herfoss, I think he's going to try to turn the tables in our bagger race tomorrow. He had the fastest lap, and I believe the only bagger to run a sub-minute and 50-second lap time here at Daytona when he qualified here at 1:49 .987. They were in the low minute 50s, but no 49s in the race.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I think Rispoli turned one of the fastest laps of the race, so 50.645. Wyman's fastest was a 50.688, and Herfoss a 50.671. So, great time there. But I think that the bikes are going to get even faster tomorrow. Like you mentioned, they might dip into the 49s, but I think that seems to be the race pace. They're all pretty comfortable right there around the minute 50 mark, and their mid 50s. Rispoli, fast. I was kind of surprised that Hayden Gillum wasn't in that lead draft for a little bit longer. Good ride for Rocco Landers on the number 97.
2 fifth-place finishes. Not on the podium, but 2 solid fifth-place finishes.
On 2 brand new motorcycles.
Yeah, and, if he can have an even better day tomorrow in both of those classes, he'll be heading to Road Atlanta very much in the hunt for the championship.
Yeah. Kyle Onsong finished 6th. Bobby Fong on the number 50 machine was 7th. Travis Wyman was 8th. I was surprised he wasn't a little bit farther up. Tyler O'Hara finished 10th because of the problems that they had with that SNS Indian. Riders that didn't finish, Jake Lewis on the number 85. They've been struggling all weekend long. He kept coming in on the crash truck or so mechanical problems. I was really surprised that Shane Narbonne didn't do better as well on that Trask Performance machine.
He was a DNF, and then we had Ruben Zaus.
Yeah.
I talked to Dan Krug, who has been working with Ruben. I think they've been absolutely struggling. Hopefully they can get things sorted out overnight because, he was a DNF, and he can come back out here and get in the action for race number 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Yeah, Jesse Janish, back in action with a Suburban Motors, Harley Davidson, Sly Fox Trask Performance folks. They kept black flagging him. They kept saying that he was puffing blue smoke, but he never had oil or anything. So they ended up pulling him in, and he didn't end up finishing the race. So some really good racing this afternoon. We are going to have some good racing tonight as well at the flat track, and to talk about that a little bit, we're going to bring in our friend Alan Matlock. Thanks so much, Pat. We'll talk a little bit later on, and of course we'll see you back here at the Speedway tomorrow. We'll put together some more good content for the Rev TV Canada folks.
Well, we absolutely enjoyed it today. Great hanging out over there in Canada Corner for about an hour.
That was good.
Getting the stories, and there were many among the Canadian riders. But I'm going to hand the torch over to Alan here, who is our flat track expert. A great opening night. We understand it was sold out, jammed to the rafters over there at the Daytona short track.
So many riders, too.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
It should be an absolutely great night tonight.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Pat. Yeah, absolutely. So tickets are still available. You can get tickets at the gate. You can still buy super tickets for the racing here at Daytona International Speedway. So you can get a road race ticket and a dirt track ticket. So, but yeah, you can just pull right up to the Speedway here and grab a ticket for flat track. This is Alan Matlock. Alan is one of our flat track experts. He's also, you can find him at the racetracks quite often. He works the Springfield Mile in Illinois. And last night we had a pretty good time over there. They had the twins class, the singles class, and of course they had the Royal Enfield Build Train Race class, where the number 11 machine of Taylor Little was the winner. Thanks, Pat. We'll see you tomorrow. Taylor Little on the Royal Enfield. Of course, the Royal Enfield Build Train Race. They're all Royal Enfield motorcycles. There was about 8 or 9 women that were there. They build the Royal Enfield flat track machines themselves. They also have a road race version of that program, and then they train with some of the other ladies there, and then of course they race those Royal Enfield machines. So again, the number 11 of Taylor Little was the winner there. Second place was the number 17 of Kenzie Luker, a little tiny thing. She reminds me of my daughter. She's maybe 95 pounds, hustling this big 400-pound motorcycle around to get second place, and then third place to round out the podium, the number 28 of Maya Maffey. And so we are looking forward to seeing all of these classes again tomorrow. Again, tonight, Royal Enfield Build Train Race. Come out and get autographs from these girls. They're so humble. They're so excited just to be part of the flat track program. What did you think about that Royal Enfield Build Train Race program?
Well, to piggyback on what you said about the program, they work on those motorcycles. They don't have any type of crew members that they can really rely on. They really have to do everything. I noticed at Road America during the road racing program, they actually have to change their own tires, mount, change everything, all that fun stuff. So to see what they're doing in that class is really special. And again, it's really cool to see camaraderie, the competition. It's really, really cool to see.
Yeah. So they'll be back out there tonight, so make sure you check them out. The singles class was very competitive as well last night.
Singles was hot.
Holy mackerel.
Yeah.
The paddock alone, I don't think I've ever been to a flat track with that many competitors in the paddock.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's just because flat track racing is more popular now than before, or just everybody wants to win at Daytona. But holy mackerel, that place was not only jam-packed with fans, but it was jam-packed with race tents and trucks and everything else.
Yes, sir.
Very, very competitive singles class. Cody Kopp ended up winning last night.
Yes, he did, but he had a scrap on his hands with Dalton Gaultier.
It could have been, two handful of riders that could have won that, and it was so competitive. Justin Jones on the Husqvarna ended up finishing 5th.
Yes, sir.
I thought that was a good ride for him. Chase Seehoff was on the Honda, 2 Hondas, in fact, inside the top 5.
Chase, fast boy from Illinois.
So Chase was there on the Honda. Trent Lowe ended up getting on the podium with his Honda.
Yes, he did.
Dalton Gaultier on the KTM, and then, of course, winning the race was Cody Kopp on the KTM. So 2 KTMs at the top of the podium, 2 Hondas behind them, and a Husqvarna. The singles class is really shaped up. Didn't come across the Kawasaki.
Nope.
The Yamaha didn't make it into the top 5.
Yep.
So they've got those Hondas and KTMs dialed in over there.
Real quick about Cody Kopp. I don't know if you're familiar with Rick Ware Racing. If you're not, he's got teams in NASCAR. As a matter of fact, in the pits last night was his drag race counterpart, which was Clay Millican, NHRA top fuel pilot. Clay Millican was actually in the pits last night rooting on Cody Kopp, as was Rick Ware, because in the victory lap, Rick Ware actually took the lap of honor with Cody on the back of his bike. So that was tremendous. That was cool. And to see the brands or the different leagues crossing over, and big thanks to Rick Ware for sponsoring Cody Kopp. And again, that, if I'm not mistaken, that did come along like real late in the evening, kind of a sponsorship deal, but it was really cool to see everyone getting behind Cody and seeing the crossbreed of cross-pollination of the different racing programs.
Some surprises in the twins class, although it shouldn't have been a surprise. Sammy Halbert dominated the practice and qualifying on that Harley-Davidson XR 750.
50-year-old Harley-Davidson engine design.
And it obviously looks brand new because they take great care of it. But that thing in the so first of all, the top 5 qualifiers had a dash for cash in both classes, and Sammy Halbert won that going away.
Yes,
so
did.
He won the $5,000 in that dash for cash, and he was leading the twins race from what looked like was going to be a flag to flag finish.
Sure did.
And then what happens?
Well, from my understanding, maybe a bolt or something came loose from the engine case, but it was kind of just wisping oil. That's what I like to say. It was just wisping a little bit of oil. And that's when things got kind of strange.
The bike started smoking. We thought it blew up.
Yes, we did.
And he clearly lost a little bit of power, or either he lost power because he started sliding back through the field, or the guys behind him were like, I don't know what's happening. It's my time to go.
Yeah.
So we're not sure, because it was a pretty long race, right?
Yes.
And so we're not sure if Sammy Halbert got slower or if the guys behind him just decided it's time to get out of here because they didn't know what was happening with the smoke. But Sammy Halbert started smoking pretty bad towards the end of the race. He started sliding back one spot after another, and he ended up 5th, and it was a good ride for him. And luckily, They didn't black flag him. They didn't take him off the racetrack. They let it finish.
Yes, sir.
It didn't look like there was any oil being leaked onto the racetrack, so they let him continue. So he was able to finish 5th. Ahead of him, Davis Fisher finished 4th. Good finish for him. And then the number 44, Brandon Robinson, the Mission Roof Systems Indian FTR 750, finished 3rd on the podium. That was a good ride for him.
Robinson. I like joking about that. But yeah, it was a very good race, and like you said, there's so many things going on, and I truly believe, like you said, when the situation with Sammy came up, Dallas pretty much said, "Okay, I gotta go,
time.
I gotta go,"
I'm
and
out.
he just turned it on and just started cranking out lap after lap of just hard pressing, fast passes.
Yep. Second place was, I thought, another good finish for Brandon Price, the number 92 machine. The Memphis Shades Corbin Yamaha 700. Really good ride for him to finish 2nd. And then Dallas Daniels, not a surprise to see him up there. He did so well in singles for a couple of years and just been dominating in the twins class. That Estison Racing Yamaha, he's also riding the Yamaha 700 with the number 32 placard. That Estison Racing machine is so well prepped, and that team is so well prepared.
And you can always find Tommy Hayden somewhere in the shadows checking out what's going on with Dallas's progress and watching over the team.
And of course, Hayden Gillum was over there as well.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, not Hayden Gillum.
JD Beach.
JD Beach was over there helping out. It's kind of funny. We've been watching JD Beach help Hayden Gillum here at the road race track. And as soon as he's done here, he jumps over there and starts helping Dallas Daniels and everybody over there with all their stuff.
He basically ended up helping, Davis Fisher there for a few minutes as well towards the beginning of the main event. So JD Beach, tip of the hat to JD because he's always there to help out.
Just so selfless. It just,
yes, absolutely.
He's not here racing, so he just wants to give back to all his buddies. And
he's not there to be flashy. He's not, he's so low key. You wouldn't even know he was there until you notice the locks coming from underneath the back of the hat. And he's usually flying back and forth with helmets, leathers, or whatever the riders need.
Yeah, so it was good to see him there last night. So actually, we're going to get packed up here. They have, like we mentioned, they have tickets available. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of their VIP fan experience. So it's a couple extra bucks. It's a little bit of an upgrade. You just go to the ticket office and say, hey, I want the fan experience, and they'll get you signed up for that. So we're going to go over there. We're going to meet over there about 6 o'clock tonight, and we're gonna get Alan in there to experience the VIP fan experience where you get to meet a bunch of the riders. You get to be in the bullpen, be real close to start-finish line. So we're going to go take advantage of that. So we're going to bail out of here. We're going to grab a quick bite to eat. I'm going to start choking down some more cough drops. And we're going to meet over here at the Progressive AFT Flat Track happening right here at Daytona International Speedway. Just come right through gate 40, and they'll have parking there for you. Again, the ticket booth is right there. Tell them you want to upgrade your ticket, and they'll get you taken care of. They've got food over there. They've got hot dogs and popcorn, all kinds of other. That's fine.